Today we'll mainly discuss the marital and romantic lives of the three daughters of Prince Nicholas of Greece and Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna of Russia. Despite the lack of commonality in the marriages and love lives of Greek princesses, the situations of these three sisters are quite intriguing. Prince Nicholas was the third son of King George I of Greece. According to records, he was skilled in painting and was involved in the preparations for the first modern Olympic Games. However, in my view, these descriptions seem somewhat strained. Nicholas himself did not have particularly outstanding achievements or characteristics. His presence is mainly reflected in his wife and daughters. At the age of 30, Prince Nicholas married Grand Duchess Elena, who was 10 years his junior. Despite Greek princes being adept at choosing spouses, it cannot be denied that they were somewhat looked down upon by the bride's family. Elena was the youngest child of Grand Duke Vladimir Alexandrovich of Russia and Duchess Marie of Mecklenburg-Schwerin, and their only daughter. Marie placed great importance on her social status and was even considered somewhat materialistic. She greatly desired for her daughters to marry husbands who would bring honor to the entire family. In her early years, Elena was engaged to Max of Baden. Max was ostensibly the heir presumptive of Baden and also served as a politician. The specific reasons for the unilateral cancellation of the engagement are not clear, but rumors suggest that Max was not interested in women, and his subsequent marriages were primarily due to the obligation of the princes at the time to marry. In that era, having an engagement cancelled undoubtedly would have significant negative implications for subsequent marriages. Later, Elena encountered her second prospective match, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, the presumed heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Ferdinand's prospects were superior to Max's. However, he was not interested in arranged marriages as he had already found his beloved. He ultimately chose to marry Sophie, who held only the title of countess. They were assassinated in Sarajevo, an event considered the trigger for World War I. When Elena's third prospective match, Nicholas, appeared, it was evident that her future mother-in-law was not pleased with this poor prince who was far from the throne. After waiting for 2 years without a more suitable match appearing, Duchess Marie of Mecklenburg-Schwerin finally had to accept this marriage. Overall, despite Nicholas coming from politically unstable and impoverished Greece, he did provide Elena with a happy and fulfilling marriage. Whatever the future held, this was far better than becoming a co-wife or meeting an unfortunate, untimely death. From Elena's maternal family's perspective, her marriage to the Greek royal family could be considered a downgrade. Her status as a blue-blooded aristocrat and Grand Duchess of Russia made her somewhat dismissive of her two sisters-in-law. For instance, she viewed the marriage of Princess Marie Bonaparte to Prince George as undignified, given Marie's grandfather's past involvement in gambling, which did not meet the standards of high society. As for Princess Alice of Battenberg, who married Prince Andrew, Elena did not favor her due to her perceived lack of pure lineage. In the societal context of that time, there were clear social hierarchies within aristocratic circles, justifying Elena's pride to some extent. However, unfortunately, following the aftermath of World War I, both her maternal family, the Russian imperial family, and the Greek royal family fell from power, showing that even noble lineage could not sustain livelihoods. Meanwhile, Princess Marie Bonaparte, whom she had once looked down upon, gained significant status and influence in society due to her wealth. On one hand, Prince Nicholas's family was seen as unwelcome poor relatives at the time. On the other hand, they actively supported other exiled Russians. To raise funds, Prince Nicholas sold his paintings, while Elena sold jewelry. Among the jewelry Elena once sold, the most famous is the loop tiara, beloved by Queen Elizabeth II. Faced with three daughters who grew up gracefully, Elena harbored a deep desire for them to marry into royal families, preferably heirs or kings, to restore the family's honor. Despite Elena's hopeful aspirations, reality proved harsh and unforgiving. She came close to realizing her wishes at one point but ultimately fell short. Next, let's discuss the marriage experiences of her three daughters. Elena's eldest daughter, Olga, was born in 1903. In 1922, she became engaged to Prince Frederick of Denmark, who was 4 years her senior and also her second cousin. However, This engagement was later cancelled for reasons that remain unclear. Some claim their marriage was arranged, with both parties unfamiliar and lacking in affection. Others point out that Frederick, a seasoned sailor, was particularly rough. Reportedly, he once removed his false teeth during an incident and slammed them on a table, which frightened and repulsed Olga. Additionally, differences in religious faith were mentioned. Olga adhered to Eastern Orthodoxy and was unwilling to convert to Protestantism, leading to an impasse between them. When the royal family formally introduced the young couple to the people of Athens, Frederick, instead of taking Olga's hand, awkwardly took the hand of one of her sisters, deeply embarrassing the future bride. Shortly after this incident, Olga decided to return the engagement ring to the Danish heir to the throne, cancelling their engagement. The second year after ending her engagement with the Danish prince, Olga became engaged to Prince Paul of Yugoslavia and married him the following year. Paul was the son of Prince Arsenije, who was the second son of Serbian Prince Alexander. Although his paternal inheritance was modest, his mother Aurora was reportedly wealthy as a descendant of Russian nobility and Scandinavian magnates. Therefore, Olga's marriage to him not only avoided poverty but also provided enough funds for her to pursue art collecting. The tiara in question came from Paul's aunt, who had no children. Later, this tiara was sold by their daughter-in-law to buy a house. In 1934, Paul's cousin, King Alexander I of Yugoslavia, was assassinated, and his successor, Peter, was only 11 years old at the time. As Peter was not yet of age, Paul had to assume the role of regent. Engaging in political affairs is far more perilous than enjoying a life of luxury. A misstep can easily lead to disaster. After the outbreak of World War II, Paul deliberated for a long time and eventually decided to join the Axis powers, which resulted in their family being exiled. They spent a considerable period under surveillance in Kenya and South Africa. It wasn't until 1946 that they regained their freedom and returned to settle in Europe. In her later years, Olga traveled across Europe visiting relatives and attending various weddings, funerals, and celebrations. Paul passed away in 1976, while Olga lived on until 1993. They had 3 children and several grandchildren. Elena's second daughter, Elizabeth, was born in 1904. She was affectionately nicknamed Woolly by her family due to her thick, dark brown hair. Princess Elizabeth was passionate about horseback riding and painting. In 1934, she married Count Karl Theodor of Turing-Jettenbach, 3 years her senior. During that era, both of them were considered to marry later in life. From the luxurious tiara worn at their descendants' weddings, it can be inferred that the family of Karl Theodor was quite wealthy. Otherwise, with just the title of Count, it would have been difficult to gain Elena's approval and consent for the marriage. The couple had a son and a daughter. Among the sisters, Elizabeth led the most uneventful life, yet unfortunately, her health was poor, and she passed away from cancer in 1955 at the age of 51. Elena's youngest daughter, Princess Marina, was born in 1906. Elena's last hopes were pinned on Marina. It is said that in her early years, Marina had turned down a Prussian prince. However, at the age of 26, she met her second cousin, Prince George of the UK. The prospect of Marina becoming a queen seemed increasingly bleak. Rather than wasting aimless years, Prince George appeared to be an ideal marriage candidate. Tall, handsome, and as a British prince, he possessed a respectable status and financial means to host a grand wedding, which would uplift the entire family's prestige. To George, the earlier aspirations of becoming a consort or foreign king had faded away. As a prince, and with advancing age, marriage seemed inevitable. Marina, with her excellent lineage and striking beauty, was deemed a suitable wife for him. Considering her family's diminished fortunes, it was unlikely that there would be much interference in their life after marriage. In November 1934, Marina and George celebrated a grand wedding, making Marina the last princess to marry into the British royal family. As is well known, Marina diligently fulfilled her duties as Princess of British and bore 2 sons and a daughter. Meanwhile, George lived a dissolute life, engaging frequently with various men and women, until he died in an air crash in August 1942 at the age of only 39. Faced with drastically reduced income, raising her children alone, and still needing to maintain her social status, Marina endured many difficult years. It is rumored that in 1954, Norway's Crown Prince Olav, after bidding farewell to his wife, Princess Martha, at some unspecified time, showed interest in Marina, hoping to spend their later years together. However, as widely known, this wish was not fulfilled. Perhaps Marina felt Norway was too cold, or perhaps she had already let go of her mother's expectations. At that age, what significance would becoming queen again hold? Later, Marina attended the wedding of Denmark's heir apparent, Princess Margrethe, where she was seen arm in arm with Olav's son, Harald. There are also rumors that Marina planned to introduce her daughter Alexandra to Harald, but this plan ultimately did not materialize. Marina lived until 1968, passing away at the age of 61 from a brain tumor. In general, marriages often cannot be forced. In stark contrast to this is Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, who came from a count's family but unexpectedly ended up as queen consort. It shows that destiny's plans are unpredictable, and some things are not meant to be forced.